Hey, what's up, guys? Ryan and Joey back with another video. This time we're going to do sleeper picks for 2023. We got 5 of them for you here today. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Our first sleeper pick for the video is going to be someone you can get free at the end of your drafts. It's going to be KJ Osborn, current ADP of 150 going in the 13th round or later in all fantasy drafts. First off, he's always taken advantage of his role, stepping in as the number 2 wide receiver, whether that was when Thielen's banged up. Normally, that's when it's happened. You know, Thielen's been injury plagued the last couple years. He had a strong finish to last season when Thielen was banged up. Thielen was still playing, but he was not his normal self. In the final 5 games for the Vikings last year, he had 30 catches on 38 targets, 388 yards, and 3 touchdowns. I know Jordan Addison currently has all the hype right now, and rightfully so. He's absolutely the better talent, and even I project him to be the wide receiver number 2 in Minnesota this year. But talent and projection does not always equal reality. What happens if Addison struggles in his first year or his game does not translate well to the NFL? We see it happen all the time with some of these rookies. As I look at some late round wide receivers, I can't find myself taking a better dart throw than Osborn at the end of my drafts. He's a talented wide receiver who has proven himself already on multiple occasions. He's on an elite offense with a capable QB, and you aren't investing much to grab him at the end of the draft. He's absolutely worth taking a stab at his current ADP.
And with our second sleeper pick, we got Antonio Gibson of the Washington Commanders. Some things to note here, before we get into it. Currently, he's rated 98th overall on the ADP chart, and in his position as a running back, he's the 31st back to go off the list. Over the past couple weeks, he's continuing to fall. And as he continues to fall, I'm grabbing more and more shares of Antonio Gibson. Some things that I really like that happened this offseason for the Commanders is obviously the hiring of Eric Bieniemy, and then also the departure of J.D. McKissic. Last year, J.D. McKissic garnered 40 targets. So in order to fill that void, I kind of just split that 50-50 amongst Brian Robinson and him. And the year that Antonio Gibson would have finished with was right around 80 targets, which is kind of big and huge territory for a running back. So that's something to keep in mind. Also, too, the way that the offense was ran in Kansas City when Eric Bieniemy was there is a really interesting and special way to utilize a guy like Antonio Gibson. So with the situation that the Commanders are going to be in a lot this year, or at least in my opinion, is they're going to be fighting back in a lot of games. So if you're fighting back in a lot of games, you're probably going to have your pass catching back in the game. So I see Antonio Gibson edging out production wise this year, Brian Robinson, and I also feel like we're going to see him on the field a lot more than we will Brian Robinson this year. So that's why I have him as a 9th to 10th round sleeper this year with a lot of value.
All right, next up, I have everyone's favorite player in the NFL, Kirk Cousins. Believe you me, nobody despises this man more than myself. But I have to put my bias away this year and just follow the numbers. Kirky Boy finished as the number 7 QB last year, number 10 in points per game under his new head coach, Kevin O'Connell. They have added an elite level college wide receiver, Jordan Addison. They have added TJ Hawkinson at the trade deadline last year, who has only been improving in that offense as time has progressed. They got rid of their star-studded running back in Dalvin Cook. I know they have Madison, who is very solid as well. But what do all these signs show from the Vikings? They want to throw the football even more than they did last year. Kirk had 4,500 yards last year, and I could easily see him matching or surpassing that again this year. The real issue with his season last year was his touchdown to interception ratio and his touchdown count, of course. He had 29 TDs to 14 interceptions. As I looked through his numbers of over the past 5 years with the Vikings, I really started to realize that this year was actually an outlier for him. Even last year, he finished with 33 touchdowns and only 7 interceptions. The year before that, 35 touchdowns to 13 interceptions. I really do love Kirk where he's going right now in drafts, especially in 6-point TD formats. I also love him as a target as my first value QB in Superflex if I have a later pick, or even a very solid floor second QB. I imagine he will fall even further than his current ADP in a lot of drafts, especially in home leagues due to crazy negative stigma around the game. With the weapons he has in this offense, I see his floor being a top 12 QB with some pretty big upside to finish in top 7 and possibly even finish in the top 5.
All right. And with our fourth sleeper pick, we got the Texans receiver core. I was going to put Nico Collins in here, but I think we're just going to focus more specifically on Mechie and Dell just because of how late they're going in these drafts. And obviously, Nico, a lot of guys are going to be targeting him this year, just maybe based off his peak performances last year. They may consider him the number one guy in Houston, but I have different thoughts. The Texans made huge splashes this offseason. Obviously, they brought in C.J. Stroud. They made splashes on the defensive side of the ball. They brought in, more importantly, a new head coach and coaching staff. C.J. Stroud's going to have to navigate the year and try to find his go-to guy. I know a lot of you are going to be on Nico, but hear me out. Someone on this team is going to end up with 100 receptions. With rookie talents like Mechie, unfortunately, we would have heard more about him last year, but he had his he had his medical IR. I'm just glad that he's back and ready to play because he's a hell of a talent. We also got Tank Dell. So with these guys being so young, they're going to need to step up to the plate and own their role, essentially. I know a lot of you guys are going to bring up Robert Woods, but, I mean, let's be honest. After what we saw in Tennessee, and I know the quarterback situation wasn't that great, I just think Robert Woods is on this team to be more of like a veteran guy to this rookie core. So I don't think Robert Woods steals a lot of the shares that I'm attacking here. But when you have guys like Dell and Mechie going outside of the 170 on the ADP chart, I think you can dig a little deep here in the late rounds and take a flyer on Mechie or Dell. Because like I said, I think anyone on this team outside of Woods could end up with 100 receptions. And that's the kind of value and like gold I'm looking for in late rounds. Another thing too, like these late round sleepers are actually really important because I know a lot of you, as well as myself, have been in drafts where guys just aren't taking those last few rounds serious, to really focus on like what a team looks like and to hypothesize on how you think their season's going to be. It's very constructive and allows you to draft guys where they may pose more value for you and give you extreme upside on your team. Because if I draft Mechie, I'm not going to be starting him the first couple of weeks. Like, I'm waiting to see if it blossoms into what I think it is. And then the value holds where you took a guy in the 14th, 15th round, and he ended up producing like a top 25 receiver. That's what we're looking for here. So I'm willing to take some late round flyers on an offense that's brand new. You know, they're going to be looking for their go-to guy. And we have some really young and explosive talent here. So I think you could find some extreme value in drafting Mechie or Dell in your late round drafts. And with our sixth sleeper pick this year, we got David Njoku of the Cleveland Browns. Yes, here we are again, talking about David Njoku as a sleeper pick again. Year-to-year occurrence, am I right? But this year, I actually think we're sleeping on him if Deshaun Watson returns back to the Deshaun Watson we once knew. Some of you would like to argue right off the rip that Jacoby Brissett and David Njoku played better when they were on the field together. Well, guess what? That's okay. Because what I'm going to try and illustrate here is how much Deshaun Watson likes his big body targets. In 2019, Deshaun Watson threw for a total of 26 touchdowns, and 34% of those touchdowns went to a tight end. Does Darren Fells ring a bell? Or how about in 2020 when he had 33 total touchdowns and 21% went to tight ends? Hopefully this illustrates to you that when Deshaun Watson is playing like the Deshaun Watson we know, he really enjoys his big body targets around the red zone and the end zone. If the Browns can move the sticks this year with ease and Deshaun Watson can knock off the rust this offseason, I really do think that the field will open up with the balanced running back attack they have and the new weapons with Elijah Moore and the receiving core they already have. This only opens up more opportunities for a guy like David Njoku. And that's why he's our sixth sleeper pick. Alright guys, and that's going to wrap up our sleeper portion of this video. If you guys liked anything you heard, learned anything you knew, drop us a like. If you guys have any comments, questions, or even feedback for the channel, drop those in the comment section below. And if you guys haven't already, please drop us a subscribe. We really appreciate the support, and we can't wait to see you guys on the next one. Take it easy.